Hi, and welcome to Dear Art Producer. I am your host, Heather Elder, and today is May 23rd, 2022, and we are joined by freelance art producer Tanya Hotton. Tanya's versatility allows her to integrate print, broadcast, and online projects seamlessly. Over the years, she has shot for consumer advertisers worldwide that range in costs from thousands to millions of dollars. She is an expert at stretching a budget and getting the most out of a tight deadline. Ultimately, it is her thoughtful and professional approach that allows her to create successful collaborative relationships with creatives, clients, noted photographers, and talent around the world. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I couldn't be better. It's a beautiful day outside.
Are you in New York right now?
I am in the Hudson Valley.
Oh, you are? What part of the Hudson Valley?
I am actually near Hudson, New York. So I'm 20 minutes from Hudson and 20 minutes from Great Barrington, Massachusetts.
Okay, so Doug Menuet, one of the photographers we represent, is in Kingston, and he just speaks so highly of it. And I've never been to the Hudson Valley, and I'm just dying to get there someday.
Oh, you must. it's
everybody,
weird.
Yeah, everybody says the most amazing, magical things about the place. And you're at Area 23 now, we talked about briefly, and that is just one of my favorite teams to work with. Everyone over there we just chatted about is just so kind and nice and amazing to work with, so you're very fortunate to be there.
I am. It's been a wonderful experience.
That's so great. Well, thank you for being on the show today, and I always like to start out an interview just kind of getting to know you a little bit and kind of understanding what your background is and how it ended up that you are freelance, and kind of how did you even get into art production? You know, what do you think is most relevant for you to share with us today in that respect?
Sure. I'll try to make a long story short. So I went to Syracuse University. I studied graphic design. And when I graduated, I ended up working for a very small shop called Buckley DeCircio. And that was with Brian Buckley, who is now of Hungry Man. And we were a shop of about 12 people. And I did everything design related. So I was, producing all the photo shoots. I did not know that was a job unto itself. And just through the years, I realized that I had more fun producing shoots than I actually did doing graphic design.
That's great. Yeah, it is really interesting. I always talk about this, but, just kind of how people end up in this position, especially having been at a smaller shop, it's no wonder you gravitated to this if you really got to wear so many different hats. You kind of realized in yourself that I'm guessing here, but, it was the creative aspect of the industry that drew you to it. But then once you got into it and did so many different things, you realized, it was production that you wanted to be in.
Exactly. So growing up, my dad was actually an actor and an artist. So a lot of times I was going on sets and seeing him doing things and sort of the behind the scenes. And I don't know, I guess somehow I just always sort of gravitated towards that. I won't say I'm a wing man, but I'm a wing person. And so it's really fun for me to sort of put things together and, help other to soar. I don't have to be in front of the camera or sort of the focus of the attention, but I just love everything about production.
Yeah, I love that idea of not being the focus of attention, and just helping get it all done and make it all happen. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, what are you known for on your team? I know you've been at your current agency for a little bit. Maybe, in general, it doesn't have to be that about that agency specific, but in general, what are you known for?
Well, I think I'm known for being hyper organized. But then I don't sort of just stand around and let other people do things for me. I'm very, roll your sleeves up, pitch in, and whatever needs to get done, I'm willing to do whatever I can to make sure it gets done.
So you would say you're very task oriented?
Without a doubt, yes.
Yeah. I find that I am the same way, and it seeps over into my personal life. And I have learned this year to really practice restraint, because not everybody needs me to close the loop on their task in their life, but it's hard to turn it off.
That's what I was going to say. It's really hard. And a lot of times, what I find is I'm doing someone else's job sometimes, and I actually have to sort of make myself stand back and go like, okay, the control freak in me can let it go,
Yeah.
and somebody else can do it, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Okay, so what about your role as an art producer? I wonder, does it vary from agency to agency since you're freelance, or do you find that you're kind of doing the same thing wherever you're working?
Yeah, it's all similar. Some jobs I'm purely doing photography. So, whether that's helping to select a photographer and seeing a shoot through to the end. Some jobs I'm also doing CGI or illustration and things like that. So that's how it varies. But my true love is producing photo shoots, period.
And what is the most challenging aspect of your job?
These days, it's
Yeah.
actually getting you your check.
Oh my gosh. No
Yeah,
kidding, right?
yeah. So, I've just found getting advance checks trying. It happens because, it's sort of when I know we're doing a shoot, it's one of the first things I sort of, start doing the paperwork on and all of that. But, the money hasn't always arrived at the agency from the client. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard that a few times. And so, I think because I'm freelance, I'm so cognizant of what it is to be running a small business, and that it hurts me when big companies are sort of relying on you to, support their process, their job. So that's really my number one, is to always try to make sure everybody's getting paid in a timely fashion.
Have you ever had someone pull the plug on a production because the didn't arrive on time?
I have never had that happen. And I have had jobs that, 2 weeks after the shoot, they're still waiting for the advance. And so I do everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's such a challenge. I find too right now, the other part of that is making things extra difficult and stretching out the timeline a lot is the idea of the POs and the complexity of the terms and conditions.
Yep.
And how much back and forth there is now between the agency and their legal team and the photo teams and their legal teams. So many more of us are having legal counsel of our own that we are starting to put on retainer because they've gotten so complicated. And we're all used to, in the past, you approve a job, we all get excited, you send me the PO, and it gets signed immediately and sent back. So there really is no delay in the production timeline. But what's happening is there are delays now because there is so much back and forth in the negotiation of what everyone is requiring that we're starting to have to build that into the schedule. So the assumption isn't any longer that you can approve a job and get started immediately. I mean, maybe in good faith that you would,
Sure.
but you really have to work through those PO and terms and condition details, allow enough time for that to happen, and recognize that lawyers do not have the same sense of urgency as we all do. So are you finding that on your end too?
What I will say for me, it's still my number one is the money aspect of it. But yeah, I would say following quickly behind it is sort of all of that paperwork. And obviously we're in a litigious society and everybody wants to cover themselves one way or another. So that definitely enters into the process. I haven't had lots of problems with that. Maybe it's just the clients I've had, or I have a working relationship with the agents or the photographers. So it hasn't been that big of an issue, but I know it does come up.
Well, and I know Area 23 and Foot Cone are really good about it and they take it really seriously. And, that's so appreciated on this end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what are your clients asking of you right now? Are they any of them hesitating to produce, or Is there anything holding them back? Or do you feel like everyone is just like gangbusters trying to get as much content as they can right now?
I had 9 months during COVID where my phone did not ring. And that was, I've been a freelancer off and on for a very long time. And I have to be honest, that was one of the scariest times in my life. I kept thinking, like, maybe I'll never work again. What I will say is that after that 9 months ended, it's been nonstop. Like, the work has not stopped coming. So it's people are definitely either trying to make up for lost time, or those companies that are doing well or doing very well and are able to spend money to shoot. So, for me, it's so much of it are sort of library images and things like that. There's a lot of that. But what I really enjoy doing is crafting beautiful shots.
And do you find that you're on set now, or do you find that you're remote? And does either one, if you're remote, does that kind of get in the way of you being able to do that?
So I actually have not done one job fully remote. I have been on a lot of jobs where the agency is remote and the client is remote. So what that does is, you might think, oh, that's going to make my job easier. It really doesn't make your job easier, because you want people that are deciding to be in the room. So what it does is it slows the shoot down. So I'm not opposed to it. I've done it. It works fine. It just makes the day go a little bit slower. So, if somebody's trying to get 15 shots, you might only get 10. Something like that.
No, it definitely does slow things down. But it is also, I feel like we've become, as an industry, such a well-oiled machine on how to do it when it's necessary. And also kind of setting expectations. If you've got the majority of people on set and there's one decision maker somewhere else, that person recognizing the responsibility of what they can be holding up if they, aren't present and ready to chime in.
Exactly. And, COVID overall, I take it very seriously. Obviously all the rules and regulations are still in place that were in place, 2 years ago. They really haven't changed much. So I pretty much every job I've had just in the past couple of months, somebody's tested positive for COVID. So that's always in the back of my mind when I'm producing a shoot, what if this, what if that?
It's interesting because that is happening a lot. All the art producers I talk to or interview, or photographers or other reps that I'm talking to, I'm hearing all the time, there's always someone on a shoot, or someone knows someone or something like that. I feel like it's less dire now when it happens. Entire productions are not getting shut down because of it. It's coming down to whether or not you test positive or not, oh, shoot, the producer tests positive and now we all have to quarantine, and now we're all, because everyone's wearing masks and they're vaccinated and boosted, and, everybody's recognizing
we have to live with
they're being more okay with that. So
yeah, we have to live with the madness. And I think exactly,
yep.
It's not as dire. I was on a job where I, flew across the country, and then somebody on the video shoot tested positive, and, the whole shoot was shut down for a month, and then we came back and did it again. So yeah, it's been very, very interesting. And it just adds a whole another layer to all the millions of things you have to do to now worry about, do I have to get a concierge? What do I do? It's
right.
It's been interesting.
It is interesting. Well, what does your next month look like? Maybe you can share some details with us about what you're being asked to create and plan. Obviously, you don't have to tell us your clients or the specific shoots, but are you working on photo shoots, or is it video, or is it a combination of the two? Are you doing CGI or, illustration, animation? What's on your to-do list in terms of the projects you're creating?
Yeah, right now it's a lot of photography. I've just finished some CGI projects, and I've always got some illustration things sort of going on in the background. But right now it's photography.
That's great. Oh, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Is it harder or easier to get an estimate approved right now?
I have not had problems. I think, I go into it. I've done this a lot, so I sort of know where estimates should fall. So before I even come to you, let's say, I discuss with the account team what the budget may be. If they don't have a budget, I sort of throw a number out to say, like, so if I presented $150,000, would somebody fall off their chair? Sort of,
Right.
what are we thinking? So I try to get a good gauge, and I try to um, do as much legwork in advance so that, you and I don't have to do the dance for so long. I'm very practical, and I'm very cognizant of people's time. And to me, time and money are very important.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. Not knowing the budget, or not knowing that the agencies and the creatives are aligned with what it would take to get the project done. I don't always need to know the number, but I need to know that you're knowledgeable, right? I mean, I think this comes into play when you work with clients that you haven't worked with before, and I get a request. Their idea of what a robust budget is and mine might be very different. So just having people appreciate how much time goes into an estimate and what's involved, and having to recognize and do the legwork ahead of time to figure out, do I have enough money to execute this creatively, is really important.
Well, and that's where I always have a hard time, because if we know what the budget is, a lot of agencies will make you triple bid just because you have to triple bid. But again, my hope is that you're hiring me for my expertise, right? So I kind of know where numbers should fall, or how low we can get them, or how much we can push. And so, yeah, it's just kind of always frustrating for me and for you. I don't like to have people triple bid unless it's a real triple bid.
Yeah, I mean, it's that I appreciate as well. It's always nice to not have to triple bid, especially if you know the budget, and we're all just kind of working to get you the best possible job for the amount of money that you have. But we also understand that there's a triple bid involved, the majority of the time. I think what's interesting with the triple bid process right now is that we're learning, because the clients, well, I guess you would start with, because the agencies are put in this position of having to triple bid, and there's so many amazing talent out there to choose from. You're choosing 3 really great photographers, let's say, for a project, and you're spending a lot of time with each one to get their approach and buy-in on each thing, helping them get to the budget, etc. And then you may have a point of view as an agency or a recommendation, but if the client chooses someone else besides your recommendation, it's usually, a lot of times we find, it's not pushed back on, because they have 3 really amazing choices. They've spent the time and they've done their homework. So we're finding, we've kind of started not asking anymore if we're the recommend, because sometimes it doesn't really matter. All right. So Tanya, let me ask you a question. Do you guys work with production consultants at all, or?
I have to say, fortunately, I haven't had to do it that much. It does, again, jobs are already challenging. It's kind of like the COVID. It adds another level to the job, and it also slows the job down. Again, if you're hiring somebody that's a little more, I'll say, seasoned like me, you're hiring me for my expertise to look at an estimate and flag things that don't seem right. This is art. It is not, an exacting thing. Different photographers charge different amounts of money. Assistants are different, different scales. So
Yeah.
that's my hardest part, when all of a sudden someone's like, well, a photo assistant should only make $400 a day, and this person's paying their $7. Well, that's what this person pays their photo assistant. We're hiring.
Right. Well, and also different parts of the country, different costs. Yeah, you're right. It's all very different.
Exactly. So I haven't had to do it much. It just adds more time. Ultimately, you end up usually getting what you need to. And, they may have shaved some funds off. but I also feel like that's why I'm there as well, to sort of, be able to spot things that might not look right.
Yeah. I sit on the board of the AMA, which is the Artist Management Association, and we did a really fantastic webinar with a few different cost or production consultants.
Mm-hmm.
And they talked a lot about how their roles were evolving and the value that they add in terms of education to the client side. That doesn't, always exist given the amount of layers, and especially the new in-house agencies that are kind of cropping up and things like that. So if I remember, I'll send you the link. It's really quite fascinating and interesting, and it might be something you want to listen to.
I think that sounds great. I would love to listen to that. And I think what you're saying is very true, that on the client side, the type of people, I think the client side used to actually have more people that were familiar with advertising. And I think there's less and less of that now. A lot of
Yeah.
times I'll sort of like a marketing expert who may or may not have even ever been on a photo shoot before, and just coming to the realization that they're actually there to approve the shots that we're taking.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a very different world. So I understand why people bring cost consultants in. It's just, again, it slows down the process a little bit. But if it makes the client, more comfortable, then it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the selection process. Once you have your estimates and your treatments, I'm assuming you're asking for treatments a lot. Curious, do you think treatments are the need for them are increasing, decreasing? Do you always need them? Do you find you don't always have to have them? What's your point of view on treatments?
Don't always have to have. But if a team asks for a treatment, we need a treatment, and we need the treatment to be taken seriously. I've definitely gotten treatments, that look like it was done by an assistant or somebody that didn't really care. And that really, if you were sort of in the front running, but now your treatment isn't that great because you're just sort of going on your laurels, it's not going to go far. Like if a client or if the agency is asking for a treatment, they really want a good treatment. Um, the issue that I run into a lot of times is it's advertising, and we need everything yesterday. So a lot of times, if you're a busy working photographer and now you need a day to do a treatment, well, when are you going to find the time to do that? So again, I always try to give as much time as possible for a treatment. But yeah, if we're asking for a treatment, it's important. And it is a big part of the job. We don't always show the entire treatment. We may be doing our own deck. So we sort of pick and choose from the treatment. But again, it's an important part of the process for us.
That was one of my questions. I was going to ask you, if you pick and choose any parts of it, and if you do, which parts do you usually share? Or maybe it's project dependent, but I'm kind of curious how that gets determined.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. It's in the treatment, a photographer may have put, 15 shots, but we only want to show 10 of the shots. And then sort of, we might pull apart their approach and merge it with our approach, so it really varies.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So for you, what makes a really successful treatment?
Really, for me, is that somebody took it seriously.
Yeah.
And listened to, because we will have just done probably an hour creative call with the photographer. So, really they heard us and they're able to translate what we're saying into a beautiful treatment that will hopefully get them the job.
Yeah. I suggest to my photographers sometimes to put a summary into their treatment because of what you said, which is sometimes you pick and choose sections, right? So rather than have you to try and figure out, you might have multiple parts of my treatment or the photographer's treatment that you might want to share, but they're showing up in different areas. By us including a treatment, it gives you, a summary, it gives you the flexibility to be able to all on one page kind of show what our approach is. And that seems to work really well for us sometimes.
It does. Yep, absolutely.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what it's like to market to you. How are people showing you new work right now? I know that a lot of agencies are not in person. Obviously, you're in the Hudson Valley, so you can't go and be part of a big portfolio show right now. So how are you seeing
Yeah.
new work?
Well, I'm looking forward to the book in a few weeks.
Yay! I'll
Um,
see you there.
right? To see people in person again, it'll be so nice. You know, I remember the olden days and portfolios coming to the office and who has the portfolio and where did it go and the messenger's here. So I have to say I don't miss those days. Um, I think it's really challenging for you right now, right? Because even before the pandemic, uh, we didn't have offices anymore. Like I used to have a space where I could
Yeah,
put cards and books and things, and then all of a sudden I just had a computer and a file cabinet. So, now, I save things. I'll get digital cards or digital portfolios, and I will save those. And categorized and all that good stuff. So I sort of have a well to go to. The hardest thing for me, but it's really just self preservation, is if somebody's just cold emailing me, I'll call it. I can't reply to everybody. It's
yeah,
it's just it's just not an option. And so sometimes people will reach out a couple of times. Hey, did you get this? Did you get this? And I'll finally go, yes, yes, I got it. It's the volume of what we get is large, and then you're trying to deal with your daily work every day. So it
yeah.
really, as much as I want to be able to reply and acknowledge everybody, it is very hard to do.
Is there a message that kind of breaks through for you, or maybe it's the work, or maybe it's timing, maybe it's
It,
all of it? I'm
it,
not
it's
sure.
it's the work. I mean, look, a few months ago, somebody, it was for a specific pharmaceutical disease, and I was actually in the estimating process of it, and a photographer reached out to me, and she was perfect for it. So it literally, she did not ultimately get the job, but it was really good timing on her part because I was able to include her in the process and at least get her work seen by a wider audience. So
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of timing. But again, as I say, like I keep files, and if you're right for the job, I'm gonna look you up. And I try to, obviously there are photographers that I work with, and if it's creatives, have people they like to work with. But I really like to work with new people. Like that's part of why I like my job. I really like new adventures, new challenges, and meeting new people. At the end of a job, I just finished a job and I'm like best friends with the photographer now. If you're, even if it's just a 2-day shoot, you spend so much time prepping the job, then you do the job, and then you do the post production on the job, that it's really nice at the end of it, if you have a good team, that you end up as friends.
oh, that is so true. That is
Yeah.
so true. Um, I think that is one of the most important parts of our job is the relationships. And I draw from mine all the time. And I'm looking for new opportunities to make new friends and new strong relationships, whether they be, um, personal or work related. I sit in an office that used to have, 4 or 5 people in it with me, and now there's just one.
Right.
And I really, look to strengthen those relationships at every moment I can get.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, in our new world, I feel really fortunate that I am able to work out of my house. I am no longer in the city proper. I can be if I need to be. It's not a problem. But I would always get frustrated that, okay, I have this job. Now I have to go sit in the agency for a month, but my entire job is on the phone. And maybe there are a few meetings
Yeah.
to attend. But, if I'm in the luxury of my own home, I have privacy. I don't have other things going on around, and I can actually have
Yeah.
a conversation with people.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I feel like on one hand, we are incredibly more efficient and can get more done without the interruptions. But at the same time, there is this collaborative part that's missing. And I also feel like, at least for how it worked in my office, we had there was at one point, there was probably four of us together in the same office, and you learn a lot from each other through osmosis just by sitting next to someone and being able to have a quick conversation or hear what they're saying on the phone and learn from their conversations. I do miss that part a little bit, but I also enjoy working from home.
Yep.
So
I absolutely agree with what you're saying.
So do you feel comfortable hiring vendors that you haven't worked with yet? Or are you gravitating towards people you know and trust right now? Speaking of relationships.
No, what I will say is I love working with new people, but a lot of times, I'm going through reputable agents. So I guess there's a comfort level there, right? Like I know if I'm sourcing a photographer through you, the photographer is going to be professional and do a good job. I have no concern about that.
That's great. I just had a conversation with a photographer about that the other day. He was being asked for references, and he asked me if I ever had that happen before. And there's some other, I don't want to tell his story, but like there were maybe some reasons they might have been asking. I'm not 100% sure. But, at this point he was just asking if that ever really happened. And I was like, well, I have one photographer that puts, kind of testimonials on his site. So they exist. I said, but I think maybe once or twice in my career have I ever been asked to give a recommendation, have another client give a recommendation about a photographer. And mostly if they don't know that person from their work or from their reputation, they've gotten to know them through their creative calls and the treatment that they've put forward, and then the association with me. And that, tends to be enough. Does that kind of match your opinion?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, for me, I feel like somebody who's asking that question is unsure of the process and how it works. But that, if I see somebody's work, I talk to them on the phone and we develop, a relationship as you do in a week or two of just sort of going back and forth. I feel like I get a good sense. So far, so good.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, when a photographer or director, some sort of talent reaches out to you and, asks for an appointment to share work with you, most likely it will be over Zoom at this point, with you, maybe individually or your team or some creatives. Are you saying yes to those, or are you just saying, send me your website, I'll take a look at it, or I'll, peek at your emails when I can?
Yeah, I hate to say I am more of an email kind of person just because of timing.
Yeah.
I miss the in-person in the agencies, get to meet somebody because I think that really is helpful. For me, the amount of time I spend on Zoom is mind-numbing.
Yeah.
And, if I can have a break from the Zoom and actually you send me a beautiful PDF of your work or something like that, I will enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That idea of Zoom fatigue, I've talked about that a lot, is real. It's definitely real.
Yes.
I do find things like the book and the workbook online portfolio reviews and Palm Springs Photo Festival and Photo Works and Boulevard, all of those kind of opportunities for people to get together to review work is, I think enjoying a bit of a resurgence. I'm hearing on both ends, obviously from the rep artist point of view, we're thrilled to have the opportunity to actually show work in person. And the reviewers, the people who are participating in these events and people who are attending things like the book, are equally as thrilled to have the opportunity to do the same thing. And I think we're finally at a place where, something like email marketing, I'm interrupting you. I call that interruption marketing, right? I'm constantly, it's timing if you're going to be paying attention or not. And I'm getting in the way of your workday. Whereas if you come to a book or you sign up for a workbook online event or something, just using those as an example, you are choosing to come and I am choosing to come. So we are both there at the same time for the same reason. And neither is interrupting the other. And I find those, opportunities to do that incredibly powerful and important.
Yes, and I think this year, like no other, it is more important. I think Any event that I have gone to in the past, let's say 6 months, whether it's even like a family event, there have been more people than have ever been there before.
Right.
People are dying to get out of their houses, dying to meet with people.
Yes.
So yes, I think where, maybe those live events were suffering because now you could just send things digitally and you didn't have to deal with portfolios and things like that. I think they're actually going to have a resurgence just because people really want to be together and see
Yeah.
their peers. I'm excited.
I love that you said that you're so excited to go to Lubbock, because me too. I can't wait. We went to the LA one and the San Francisco one, and it was really, really great. It was just, and the Chicago one and the New York one. I've been to, the first four all of them in the US that have since things opened up, and it's been really, really amazing. And it feels like community again, and it's great.
Good. I'm excited.
I tell my photographers, I'm like, remember that time you picked up a camera and you shot an actual job for the first time after COVID? I said, that's what it's like for me to get out into the world and actually show work in person.
Absolutely.
Well, we're kind of winding down here, and I always ask the same two questions at the end. Someday I think I'm going to compile I don't know what, a blog post or a book or something about everyone's answers, because they're all so interesting. But what is your favorite thing to do on a Sunday?
I love, if it's weather's appropriate, I love being in the garden. I love being outside with plants and herbs and hiking in nature. Nothing I like more than that.
That sounds so nice. And how about if you weren't a producer, what would you do?
I love design and I love interior design. I have renovated a number of homes, and I would probably be buying homes, renovating them, and selling them. Maybe I'd have a TV series.
Ooh, can I join you?
Right? Doesn't that sound like fun?
Yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds great. I would love that too. Well, Tanya, it was really amazing chatting with you. I appreciated you. I appreciate that you made the time to come on the show today, and your insights were really fabulous. And I know people really appreciate being able to, they feel like they're kind of a fly on the wall when you and I are having a conversation. And there's so many people that don't have access to people like you or me on a regular basis. And the podcast has really given people, pulled back the curtain for them. So thank you for being so transparent and honest with your question or your answers, and agreeing to be here today.
Thanks so much, Heather. It was wonderful.
Absolutely. Say hi to everyone for me.
I sure will.